we are broadcast. So
Ron, do you know if the mayor is planning to join us?
he is. He had to run out, and he's planning on being back. So
Okay, I think we'll wait a couple more minutes before we start, since there are a few others that told me they plan to attend today.
So, Ron, where was your background shot taken? The snow scene.
That's the over at Putney's Pond.
I thought that looked familiar. What a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
Every now and then I get lucky and get a good shot. Every next.
Look, we're good. All right.
Just a second, guys. I'm not zoning out. I'm checking weather. Thank God we're not in Bowling Green.
Yeah.
How bad is it there now?
I don't know, but that's where they're talking about where the majority of the icing is going to occur.
I came out to Frankfurt this morning. Interstates were good. There was salt in them, but the minute I got to our office, it was ice everywhere. So I'm a little concerned about coming home tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what, it doesn't take but a trip out of Prospect to show the difference between out here and the rest of the county. It was an interesting drive in this morning.
Most of the roads icy.
Oh, it was an adventure. Every single overpass on and bridge on the Snyder was froze over this morning. It was solid sheets.
Well, we are broadcasting, is that right, Ron?
Yeah, I believe the mayor's on his way in now.
Oh, is he? Okay, we'll wait until he gets in the office then.
Yes, sir. You're set up, ready to go.
We're going to have an ice storm here anytime soon. It's moving in, and I'm sending everybody home.
I heard it's supposed to get really bad. Really bad.
Yeah.
What time is it supposed to get bad?
I don't know. We just got the winter weather alert right now. We'll probably get 1 inch and shut down everything, right?
Well, if it's ice, it doesn't need to be an inch.
Yeah.
I went to Broadband Arena this morning at 7 this morning to get my second COVID shot, and the cars everywhere.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and get the meeting started, because the sooner we're finished, the sooner the mayor and Ron can go home. I don't think Harold's got that option. This is the February meeting of the Prospect Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. And our first order of business is approval of the January 8th meeting minutes. So I did send them out in advance. Does anyone have any corrections or additions?
I read them. It looked good to me.
I'm good.
So I'll move their adoption.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I couldn't hear you.
Said I move for their adoption.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
Nobody wants to second my motion.
Okay, Carolyn seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Or raise your hand or whatever. Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, they are approved as written. And the next item on the
Be careful
agenda,
going home.
welcome, David. The next item on the agenda is an update from the mayor if he chooses to update us on anything.
Well, the big news for this committee is the amendment to the budget that gave Parks Committee an additional $26,000 to spend between now and June the 30th. About 20 of that is for the contracts with Ecotech, 10 on Putney Pond and 10 in Harrods Creek. I forget what the other 5 is for. It's Linda, you can fill that in, but that's the big news for the Parks Committee. In other news, and you probably all know this by now, but I'll just touch on it. The 2 affordable housing LDG projects are stalled. One has been in litigation since 2017 and it still is. We're waiting for the judge to make a decision. It's all been submitted, so we'll see where that goes. If it goes against us, then we'll just appeal it. Because I think Grover's right in what he has told the court. At the other end of town, that project also is stalled because there's been a lawsuit filed that asserts, and it looks very credible, that that property was never properly rezoned for apartments, and it's only properly zoned for single family. Hasn't been an answer filed yet, but it looks like a serious obstacle. The other obstacle they've got, the folks that live up around there have hired a consultant on historic properties, and that consultant knows what he's doing and has filed a couple of reports. So they've got that obstacle in front of them too. So that's where those 2 proposed LDG projects sit as of today.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mayor Evans? Okay, then the next order of business is a parks update. And I will just elaborate a little bit on the money from the budget amendment. The $5,000 is for Orange Trail Stabilization Project. And the status of that is that the proposal submitted by Grayson Shipwreck of Earthbound Landscaping has been signed by the mayor. So, and Grayson is delighted to have that proposal accepted. And of course, he needs to wait for a little bit better weather before he can actually get back there and do the work. And that's basically graveling another steep portion of the Orange Trail that has been eroding. But he knows that the work needs to be done and billed by the end of June. And then of the 20,000, 10,000 was for the Putney Pond study and 10,000 for invasive plant removal in Harrods Creek Park. And the status on those contracts is that City Attorney Chris Gorman has reviewed the general, sort of the boilerplate contract language and has no problem with it. So we are waiting to receive the final contracts, detailed contracts for those. They will once again be reviewed by Mr. Gorman, and once they meet his approval, they'll go on to Mayor Evans to sign. And once again, that work also needs to be done by the end of June, and they are very well aware of that. In consultation with Ron, I don't know if you remember, the original proposal for the invasive plant removal had 3 options. And one of the options was $12,300, and that would have hit all of the really steep areas and the most needed of removal. I don't know if that makes grammatical sense, but the areas that most needed work. And Ron and I have discussed the fact that we still have about half of the original maintenance budget left. We've got about $7,000. So we've asked them to send us a contract for the $12,300 option. And so once we get that, as I said, they will be able to start working again, weather dependent on the work that they'll be doing. The one thing I would like to mention is that the proposal for the invasive plant removals is for removals of woody plants. And that means that once again, we will have the opportunity and the joy of pulling garlic mustard ourselves using volunteers. And we also will need to work on the poison hemlock as it comes up as well, because those are not woody and they die back, and so we have to wait for them to resprout. Let's see, the extra $1,000, so that takes care of $25,000 of the budget amendment. The other $1,000 is a gift from Dr. Ahrens, which I talked about last month. He gave us a gift of $1,000 to be used in Harrods Creek Park. And I've had a conversation with a couple of members of the committee and also the mayor. Dr. Ahrens is an avid birder, and we thought that it would be good to spend that money to create some kind of educational exhibit or pamphlet or something that would help people identify birds in the parks. And I had an email conversation with Dr. Ahrens, and he's delighted that we are thinking about spending it on that. He said that he wants to consult with his fellow birders for ideas for information sources. And he also mentioned that there's a chart of that sort in the kiosk along the Anchorage Trail. So when the weather is a little better, I'll make a little field trip over to the Anchorage Trail and see what they've got, because it might be something that we could emulate. And my thinking is if we could put together something that could be posted, maybe in the information kiosks, we could post it we've got 4 kiosks right now, 2 in Harrods Creek Park and 2 in Putney Pond trails. And we could put them in all 4 places. So the other thing I should mention is that years ago, Ron put together a brochure of birds in Prospect that was based on information that Paul and Carol McAllister had accumulated over the years. They were avid birders and also great library volunteers, I believe. And Paul actually used to lead a few bird walks for us. But that's, so that might be a starting point that we could add to. And we'll just keep working on that with Dr. Ahrens. So that's the update on all of the budget increase. We do have some outstanding information and maintenance items. And, once again, we still need to work on that area of the green trail that was kind of washed out. And I don't know, Ron, you had mentioned that you were going to try to get in touch with the Mason. I think his name is John Henry.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've been able to make contact with him.
I've talked to him, but I haven't spoken. So.
I did learn that right at that point in September, a Prospect resident fell and broke her ankle, kind of like me. And so that is an area that is a bit treacherous and would be good to get repaired. And speaking of that, I believe we still have not installed the emergency evacuation. So that's something, again, weather dependent on getting those installed. But the sooner we can do that, the better. Unfortunately, the people that had the injury didn't really know what to do, and they ended up making their way back to the Orange Trail before they got help. So, okay. And then the other thing that I don't want to fall through the cracks is continuing to work on the updated trail maps and park pamphlets that I know Sarah has worked on for quite a while. And I'm not sure where we are in that process in terms of getting.
Actually, they have been printed.
Right.
Which map is now on the website. Because we've got some big news about the website that I will discuss at a later date because it's not finalized yet.
Oh, it's not ready for announcement at this point, I guess.
It's yet.
And then, okay. The Deforestation Board met yesterday, and I observed the meeting via YouTube. And one of the things that they would like to pursue, and Lee, I'll let you jump in if you'd like to discuss even more, but they talked about doing additional tree labeling around Prospect and probably focusing on Cowley Park to begin with. But I think that that's something we can work with the Deforestation Board, because there may be other places along the trails that we could also label trees. So Lee, anything more you want to say about that?
Would like to ID more trees, certainly in Cawley Park and also perhaps in Harrods Creek Park along the Orange Trail, where you get a lot of people coming by. Would certainly like to have parks help us pick out the plaques or other ID means. We do have already installed, I think, around 17 plaques in Little Hunting Creek Park. We put those in more than a year ago, and they seem to be holding up well. They just show basically the kind of common name for the tree, like sycamore.
Thank you. So that is something that we will be working with Deforestation Board. And the next item of business is the Scout update. And thank you, a big thank you to Lynn for updating the list of Eagle projects that have been completed. That's a pretty impressive list. And anything more you would like to say about that or other Scout items, Lynn?
It's amazing how long the list is. You know, the first project of the modding area we had gone in almost 10 years ago. And so it's kind of a neat thing. And at this time right now in scouting, of course, we're still not meeting as of yet. And we've had a bunch of scouts who were on the path to Eagle last spring who kind of got waylaid by the virus for a while, and then last fall got back on to completing their projects. But I don't have any new scouts right now seeking projects just yet, but it's February. So hopefully we'll have some hands come up in another month or two as far as that goes. And I know we're hoping right now that with vaccine rollout and all that, that summer camp can return for scouting this summer. And so we think that America is longing to get back outdoors again. And we got our camps ready. We like to have the kids come out, and we'll see where it all goes.
Great, thanks, Lynn. So the next order of business on the agenda is to determine next meeting day and time. And I see that the next city council meeting is on the, after the one coming up, will be March 15th. So I'd like to meet the week before that, if we can. And does this day and time work for everyone? So we could just, once again, meet on March 10th at 2 o'clock?
Works for me.
Okay, right.
Yep, I am open.
Okay.
The date again? What was the date again, Linda? I missed that. I'm sorry.
It would be March 10th?
10th, okay,
Yes,
at 2?
at 2. Now, I have some other business to bring up, and then I'll open it up for anyone else that has other things that we should discuss. I understand that the mayor is planning to start working on the fiscal 22 budget probably next month. And so we need to be thinking about what our request is going to be. And I'm sure I'll be working with Ron to figure out what we need for park maintenance. I've also talked with Lee Droppelman. I really want him to get the contracts for fiscal year 21 to us before spending too much time with him. But I know if you remember the proposal that was made for the invasive removal in Harrods Creek Park, it was really a 3-year process. So I want to talk to him about what they're doing this year and really understand what our request should be for fiscal year 22. He does understand that we do budgets 1 year at a time, so we won't be giving him a 3-year budget. It's just a 1-year budget. We also, I think, may want to do some things along Putney Pond, depending on the outcome of the study that will be done. I doubt that we'll have a report by by March or April. I'm not quite sure how long that study is going to take, but I think we're going to have to come up with some kind of a placeholder number to put in a request, just to be sure we've got some funding available if we decide we need to implement some changes there. And then we need to think about special projects that we want to do in fiscal year 22. So I welcome any input from anyone on the call or send an email later.
So Linda, you want to talk about additional projects? At this time last year, we were still thinking about taking tours of playground and look at the possibility of installing a playground for kids on some city property somewhere. And of course, the pandemic came along and stopped us from being able to do that. I still have interest in exploring whether that's a possibility and what the costs would be and how big of a footprint we could do and which city properties would be available for something like that. I get out of COVID quarantine middle of next month after all my shots my shot comes in, and I get 2 weeks to let it germinate or whatever the hell it does. And I'd like to see about meeting some people to be able to talk about that and then maybe do some site visits. I've gone down and looked at the playground that they have in Hayes Kennedy there. That's the closest one to us. Of course, Lynn's got one in Bridgeport, but that's private, so we can't use that. And Hayes Kennedy's on the north side of 42. And I don't know how many people in Prospect use that, to be honest with you. I've just gone down to walk the trail and use the tennis courts down there. Is the only reason I even knew it existed. But if people in the middle of March have some availability and who would be interested in doing that, I'd kind of like to meet with them, and we can even drive independently to different locations and do things like that. They say we're supposed to wear our mask even after we're got our second shots. So, but my concern is having something to be able to discuss with the mayor before he starts thinking about a budget, because otherwise we'd be looking at if we don't get a placeholder in for the 21-22 budget, we'd be looking at 22-23. That seems pretty far off for something potentially as easy to have installed for a cost as a playground. But I'm interested in other people's input on that. I obviously can't do it by myself.
I was thinking in tandem with that, David, if anybody would entertain the idea of having a couple miniature little, I don't know, team Zoom meetings prior to the next Parks one and just kind of hash out exactly what David's talking about. Like, because when I hear him mention playground, I know that Linda, you and I have casually chatted about, you know, or at least for playground procurement, I did a little bit of that for Charlotte's previous school, and they can literally fit any footprint you want. There is a style, size, you know, amount that you can get, price point, etc. So it doesn't have to. So when you think playground, you often think this huge thing, which isn't necessarily the case. And the reason I mention that is I know Linda and I have kind of just tossed around. It'd be so neat that this is a multi-stage thing. If the parking lot could get fixed for City Hall, i.e., accommodate a few more cars, get a small footprint playground in Little Hunting Creek Park away from the flood zone that's small, you know, maybe rectangular shaped or something. And then you've got a bathroom. You can, you know, mention the library a lot when we're out of COVID. Maybe there could be story time, you know, I mean, involve a few functions. The library, the parking would be resolved, and then maybe a playground. Now that's obviously a multifaceted thing, but to kind of sit down and talk about these things, because then that leads you into, hey, could we get a gravel trail or some kind of trail from Fox Harbor so people could somehow not walk along Fox Harbor Road to get to Little Hunting Creek Park, you know, or, you know, that the parking thing at City Hall would maybe fix that. So I think everybody probably has a lot of these like wild hair ideas, but just to kind of, okay, how can we cater that? And then, like you said, David, hopefully present and see what the mayor is amicable towards presenting, and do it in stages.
So my son works for he's an architect and works for a company that does amusement parks and other kinds of things. And he's built with his company a couple playgrounds for churches and other kinds of things. And he said the thing that we need to get our hands around is, one, they're a lot more expensive nowadays than they used to be when I designed one and helped build one for my kids' elementary school.
They're safer too.
But they're modular, like Sarah mentioned, and you can build them in stages. So if we came back and the mayor said, no, I'm
And we lost David.
Okay, hopefully he'll be able to rejoin us.
Linda,
Yes.
one other thing I want was, as we're thinking about the budget, the upcoming budget for next fiscal year, to go back and look at the Ecotech original proposal and see if we can get funding in there to, you know, do other parts of the project that would take us up to that original $45,000 best case scenario, you know, job of the invasive removal. And especially now, I think it's an important time to do that when it seems to have quite a bit of support on the council for, you know, completing that project.
I totally agree. And that's sort of where I am in my planned conversations with Lee Droppelman, is to say, okay, we've got a good start year one. What do we need to do next year and the year after to really, or how much can we accomplish next year? I'd love for them to do the first cut on all the areas they weren't able to do in fiscal year 21, but then we know we'll still have a couple more years that we'll have to come back. Now, I see Ron is saying, let's wrap this up, I think because of the weather.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got 25 miles to go in an ice storm, so.
The other thing, I've had an email from Greg Kuhlsman with some possible ideas for sort of long-term planning. And what I would like to do, Sarah and I had a conversation a day or so ago about this. And what I would really like to do is for all of us to think about projects we might want to embark on that would improve access to the parks, features we may want to develop, like a playground, educational programs, programs for families or entertainment. Again, talk about the 50th anniversary of the city of Prospect. How can we better market our parks so that our residents are really aware of everything that we're doing? And Sarah has graciously offered to allow people to send ideas to her. And so I'd like everyone to really think about this, send ideas to Sarah, and she will kind of put them all together, and we'll see which ideas have the most buy-in from this committee. And then again, I kind of agree with Sarah's comment about, or maybe it was David's, could we have sort of some smaller working group Zoom meetings before our next committee meeting to kind of talk through some of those, and then that might jumpstart any conversation that we could do in the committee meeting itself. So if everyone's willing to do that, it would be very helpful.
So Linda, if you and Sarah have a date that you want to do a Zoom meeting on the playground, just let me know. The only date I can't do it is February 24th at 4 o'clock when I get my second shot.
Lucky you. I think you're too young.
Yeah, don't you? And I wish.
I think,
okay.
how does this sound? So next week, Charlotte's out of school, so that'd be a little tough for me, but I'm curious if everybody really just send me, even if it's completely random, you just put, I want Ravel in this one spot. I don't care what it is. I will compile it. So just send that to me, and then maybe I can compile it and then maybe shoot an update email sometime next week. Hey guys, this is kind of the idea generation we're getting. Expand on it, or hey, I'm not getting anything. Jump in, or whatever. And then maybe we could meet sometime the 22nd through the 26th to kind of start to hone in, and then we'd still have that next week would put us the first week of March. Is that too late, do you think? If we waited the 22nd through the 26th to do kind of a catch-up meeting, or you guys want to do one next week too? For anybody who is interested.
Whatever your preference is.
Yeah, I'm free just about any time. So if the following week is better.
Does it have to be an open meeting if a small amount of us are going to get together?
Well, it just depends on how many people are interested. I know Linda, you are, and I know Sarah, you are, and I know I am. And maybe if we just talk a little bit and then come back to the group on our next meeting date and see who else might be interested in joining us. We have to be careful about getting council members involved in it because of the open meeting or too many council members involved in it.
Okay, how about this?
I think what we'll do on that score is sort of an abundance of caution. And when a meeting is scheduled, we'll just post it so that no matter how many council people or other people come, we're covered.
That's smart.
Okay, well, how about
okay, and I think what Sarah's suggesting is that we do a Zoom meeting so that we don't need to take up a lot of Ron's time, but he can still have someone contact whoever's going to host the meeting if they want to be present. Does that make sense, Ron?
Yeah.
Yeah, it can still be WebEx. It doesn't matter. But to get Ron out of here, how about we plan on getting all the emails to me by next week, and then we'll meet up. If we can email Linda and David, and everybody will be on it, but we'll sort out a meeting the 22nd through the 26th sometime during the day. And if we want to push it up, great. We'll check with Ron. And if we want to keep it that week, great. But that way we can get everybody's emails generated. So send them to whatever. I have several emails. Just send them to whatever email you want.
Just let me know so I can be sure to post it.
Yes.
Sarah, I'll send you an email of a couple of locations of playgrounds you guys can go check out, especially in Norton Commons. There's some good, really nice small ones that the kids seem to absolutely love.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, I think we better call the meeting end the meeting so that everyone can get home safely. And thank you for your time. And you always can email or call me anytime with ideas or suggestions or questions. Okay?
Hey,
Good meeting.
Thank you,
guys,
Linda.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mayor.